So today we'll be discussing about the next session, which is feedback in communication. Now the last session we have learned about communication and various types of communication. In this session we'll be learning about a very essential component that helps for a successful communication is the feedback or the acknowledgement. Okay, now feedback completes a two-way communication and it ensures a successful delivery of a message. Now, to understand about what feedback is, we need to understand about various elements of communication that we might have learned in the previous class, that is class 9. So when it comes to communication, there are three important things that needs to be taken care of. One is the sender, then we have a medium, and then we have a receiver. Now when it comes to a medium, we have a part called encoding, we have a part called decoding. Okay, so sender, who is basically the messenger, which is very important. Then we have the message or the information that we want to send. Then we have the encoding part. Encoding part is something that we convert our information or basically the structure of the message, for example a picture, a word, a text, okay, or graphics. Okay, and then we have the communication channel through which the message would travel. Okay, there are various mediums of communications. We have by air or oral communication, we have internet, okay, and we have written communication. Then comes the decoding part, which basically occurs at the receiver's end. Okay, and when you talk about decoding, it means understanding the meaning of a message. Okay, so we talk a lot about encoding and decoding basically in information technology, or which relates to these terminologies, relates to computer. Now the other important part, or the last part, would be the feedback. Okay, now what is a feedback? It's an intimidation, or it is an acknowledgement that basically proves that your message has been delivered successfully. So these are the components or the elements of feedback. Okay, now the next thing that we'll be learning is how a feedback or an acknowledgement stands. What are the examples of a feedback and an acknowledgement? So in a two-way communication, the receiver does receive the message which is being conveyed by the messenger, but how the messenger know that the receivers have received the message? So for that, the receiver should be having an acknowledgement or feedback. Okay, for example, when we text someone, okay, be it a SMS, short message service, or be it WhatsApp, we have an acknowledgement or a feedback. For SMS, we get a delivery report. Okay, and for WhatsApp, we basically get those two blue ticks. So that gives an acknowledgement that the message that you have sent has been received by the receiver. Similarly, when it's come to communication, be it verbal, non-verbal, visual, or written, we have various forms of acknowledgement. Basically, for example, a smile or a nod when you are having a verbal communication that acknowledges that something, the information has been received. We might be having a question or a clarification about whatever message you have sent. You might get a question out of it, so that means what, your message has been received. So this is a very important part of feedback and acknowledgement. Then you might get a thank you note, okay, or an acknowledgement note that we have received your information, or then you might get a clapping or a hooting. This kind of appreciation comes out of a feedback or acknowledgement, okay, within a communication. So the role of a feedback is to make communication effective and successful. So we have lots of characteristics, okay, which is associated with feedback. The first characteristic that we would explain few. The first one would be the intention. Okay, so the intention of a feedback should ensure that communication becomes successful if the message is not received correctly. For example, someone has posted you a letter. For example, someone has posted you a message, okay, and the message has been received by some other members of the family, right? So it should be mentioned in that particular message that they are not supposed to open it. It is only intended to the person that you have sent. So the intention has to be clear. Okay, the next should be the specificness of that particular message. That means it should not be vague. Okay, it should have the clarity of what a message stands for. The third point would be fair and non-judgmental. By fair and non-judgmental, it means that you should not be passing any judgment on the message. Okay, this basically comes from an upper hand. Okay, for example, from the leader of a particular group wants to send a message, okay, for them who are performing well and for them who are even not performing well. So you should not be intending the message so that the underperformers feels insulted or embarrassed. Okay, so it should not be judgmental, right? Next, fourth point would be the timeliness. Okay, the intimidation to the sender should be on time. Okay, so that means when you are having a communication, the acknowledgement should be in time. Okay, there should not be any delay. Okay, so that means when this kind of delay happens, either the receiver did not receive your message as it is intended, or she or he is not putting much of an effort to understand your message. So timeliness is very, very important. Next, fifth point would be the usefulness. Okay, so it aims to improve the overall communication. Okay, the usefulness should be for the overall communication. That means how useful a message is. Okay, next, sixth point would be the clarity. Okay, and must be must be understandable to everyone. Okay, so these are the 6 characteristics we are talking about the feedback: intention, specific, fair and non-judgmental, timeliness, usefulness, and clarity. So here we move to the next topic, that is the types of feedback. In this topic, we'll be discussing about 3 types of feedback. One is formal and informal feedback. The second one would be descriptive and non-descriptive feedback, and the third one would be specific and a non-specific feedback. Now let's come to the formal and informal feedback. Now when we talk about a formal feedback, it follows a preset form or structure using which the receiver frames feedback and sends it. Okay, so it has got a particular preset format or a structure. For example, now I'm supposed to reach a place, okay, and someone is expecting me, but I've reached that place late. Now I should be having a formal etiquettes or decorum to ask sorry from that person. So I might give a statement or say a sentence like, please accept my apologies, I have come late. So these are formal feedback because that person is expecting something out of you. So this can be considered, and it has got a preset format or a structure. Now coming to the informal feedback, when we talk about the informal feedback, it doesn't have any preset structure or a format. Rather, it is spontaneously framed and does not stick to a specific structure. Okay, so for example, that the same example that I've given for the formal feedback, if I am being informal, I could just say and sorry. Okay, just a sorry, I was late, just a sorry, but that would have made the entire thing very informal. So I would not be appreciated as a good human being because of saying that particular word. So these are the differences between a formal feedback and an informal feedback. The next topic, the next point would be descriptive and a non-descriptive feedback. So when it comes to a descriptive feedback, that means you are providing a meaningful information in details in an expressive manner. Okay, so that defines a descriptive feedback. For example, you have just watched a movie and you want to write a review of that movie. So you won't be writing in one word, or you won't be writing in one sentence. You would be expressing your views, okay, your experiences about watching that particular movie. So you would be at least writing a paragraph, how the movie was, about the characters, okay, about the interval, and before interval, pre-interval, or post-interval. So this kind of thing. So this is called a descriptive feedback. Now when it comes to non-descriptive feedbacks, that means it is some more specific about its information and does not give much of a details or descriptions. So for example, that I am reading out a book, okay, a writer has written, and I've come out with a conclusion that I only liked your second paragraph, others need improvement. So this kind of description is called a non-descriptive feedback. Okay, so the third types of feedback is a specific and a non-specific feedback. Now when you come to a specific feedback, this talks about a thing or a point particularly without talking about a general overview. Okay, so it is a feedback which is not talking about a general overview. The next one would be a non-specific feedback. So when it comes to non-specific feedback, it talks about the entire thing while giving a general overview. So it talks about pretty much everything. Okay, it does not particularly pinpoint a specific thing or a feature. It doesn't characterize. Okay, so this is a non-specific feedback. So the example of a specific feedback would be like, again, if I come to that example of watching a movie, I've watched a character and I've loved it. Okay, so for example, I like the way you described your character, for example. Okay, or I like the way a Spider-Man has described its character. I somehow relate to it. Okay, I want to do some heroism, I want to save the world, I want to save the planet. So those kind of relativity, that is called a specific feedback. And when it comes to a non-specific feedback, it's like you have watched a movie. Again, for example, you have watched the movie, you liked it, so you just have a general overview of that movie, that I like your story, it's good. So these are non-specific feedback. You are not giving much of a details. Okay, so with this we end our session 2.